It's not doing me any good.
Hi guys, welcome.
What up?
Yo.
Good evening.
Another View and Spew review for Cinema Fantastico. I am Adam Rutkowski. We have Joshua T. Ruth. We have Victor Moreno. We have Kyle MacLachlan.
Kyle MacLachlan is here. Kyle MacLachlan is here.
Right.
It's a damn fine beard.
You guys should be so lucky.
Sean, also known as the Swiss cheese hatterack.
Sean MacLachlan is here.
Yeah.
Kyle MacLachlan's
I'm going to call you
more handsomer brother.
Right.
the Swiss cheese hatterack.
What did we watch? What was this? So this was the suggestion, or I don't even know it was a suggestion, but you kind of threw it my way, or our way.
Yes.
It was more like, didn't you just mention it and then you seized upon it?
Right.
I said, what about this trailer, guys? This looks insane.
And I didn't even watch the trailer.
Adam
I
made
didn't
a
either.
purchase.
Yeah, I also did not watch that trailer.
Well, good. Thanks for paying attention to my post, guys. Jesus
I didn't.
Christ.
Well, if you post in the wild and no one sees it, did you actually post?
I mean, if we're going to be that close to it, like, I'm like, if I can go and clean to a movie, I want to go and clean to a movie. You know?
Right. But that wasn't a suggestion for the
Right.
podcast.
Totally.
It was just like, hey, guys, check this out.
Yeah, for sure.
And Adam was like, yep, we're doing it.
Done. Bought.
Yeah.
Ordered.
No, I'm glad we did.
Yeah. For those who are wondering, our pick for this View and Spew review is Gabe Bartalos's Saint Bernard.
So many fingers.
Available now on Blu-ray from our friends at Severin Films.
Yeah.
Severin.
Nice group of people. I like the Severn people.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that I've gone to their booths, whether it be at any kind of Mad Monster or whatever it is, they've always been really friendly and receptive and talkative and just like down-to-earth people putting stuff out that's fantastic.
Quality.
Yeah,
release.
Fantastico.
Remember, they're the people who put out Shocking
I won't sign
Dark.
off on that because Fantastico.
Shocking Dark.
Yeah, good one.
That's
Good
his deal. Remember, this
Yeah.
is all part of the Cult Following Podcast Network.
Right.
Yes.
And it's being videotaped this time around.
Yeah, which you'll find on the Cult Classics YouTube channel. Subscribe, tell your
Lucky
friends.
you guys. Lucky you guys. You get to see our beautiful beards.
YouTube.com/C/Cult Classics.
If we're gonna be on YouTube, we should be like all YouTubey.
Right.
You know?
I think Adam needs to get a green blanket and we can green screen like a Saint Bernard head right behind.
We need to get those like
Sean.
bright lights that like shine in like the reflection of your eyes, like those like
Yeah.
big circle lights.
Yeah.
We should have like our thumbnail, be like some dumb picture of us making some stupid face and giving a thumbs up with like big text.
This is all a work in progress.
Smash that
I am
like and subscribe.
Right,
Hey guys,
right, yeah.
we need
Yeah.
to start by saying, "Hey guys."
Smash that subscribe button, you guys.
Yeah.
Ding that bell.
God, we're sticking it to YouTube right now. We can take that, YouTube. Oh man, Saint Bernard is, I think, definitely my favorite movie that we have covered, including the Neil Breen movies. I absolutely, really, really responded to this film. I just think that it was such an interesting, just like this expression of set design and imagination and makeup and special effects and all these things, and it was clearly really low budget. You know, you can tell this was a labor of love. And I think at the beginning of the film, when you had like the little kid running around and stuff, like I was like, oh, well, is this going to be another, you know, maybe not Love on a Leash, right? But something that's going to be pretty low budget, a snooze fest. I mean, sure, it started off with a parachuting turkey, like actual, like like a dead like turkey carcass.
It was getting
chicken.
ready to jump out of the airplane.
True.
I mean, we get the payoff to that later.
Right. But before the movie started to get really, you know, bizarre, I guess, like I was a little concerned, but like I just think that if you're going to make a low budget movie, this is the way to do it, you know, because it's like the constraints of the budget and the cameras that were used and all that stuff like didn't affect it in a negative way whatsoever, in my opinion. You know, this is something that just shows that if you have the talent, the money isn't necessarily the most important thing. Like if you have talent, you have a vision, then you can really make something pretty amazing. And so I don't know if everybody responded as strongly to this film as I did, but I definitely really, really loved it.
I mean, to be fair, I don't feel right like categorizing this as the same kind of caliber as like sort of the other movies like Love on a Leash, or I mean where it's just kind of like, you know, we're kind of having fun at the ineffectual bumbling of someone who doesn't realize it, or you know, like, oh, this person is so far up their ass that they didn't realize they made this thing that's comedy gold. I mean, that's a positive thing I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you make Love on a Leash, you deserve that shit.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to, like, slag this movie, you know? I will say, like, it didn't really speak to me, you know? But I realize, like, there's, like, you know, it's clearly this guy's specific vision, Gabe Bartalos, who did all this like special effects work for like Basket Case and you know, Leprechaun. Yeah. And you could see that. I just feel like this movie like drags, and it needed way more of a narrative thread for me to be invested in it.
Yeah. The third act definitely, I would say, did drag some. There was some pacing issues in there. I mean, the movie's like, you know, 1 hour, 37 minutes. That seems to be like the theme.
It felt way longer than that.
Yeah. I mean, I think it felt like as long as it was, but at the same time, like I think these movies don't need to be that long. Like, I think a movie like this could have been
like an hour long. And I think part of it is too, like, I mean, it's very experimental. I mean, but the thing of it is, it's like, I've seen experimental movies like this before, so like some of the stuff, like especially the third act felt like super derivative of like Tetsuo the Iron Man versus like the first act, which like, okay, Eraserhead is clearly an influence. Like the third act is like, this is just a hard riff on Tetsuo the Iron Man, you know? So that was my take on it.
Yeah, the climatic battle was right out of it.
Yeah. So
if that was a battle.
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I do like that there's a lot of symbolism there that's left open. Like, clearly this means something specific, and I like that. Like, okay, there's meaning here. We don't have to understand what it is specifically, and that's an upside, you know, and you can read into that. There's a bunch of stuff in there that you can read into. And then versus there's some stuff that just kind of seemed absurdist to me, which didn't appeal to, like, my humor so much. You know, so like I'm trying to give it as like a balanced thing. Like I said, I don't want to slag on it because like this isn't like Love on a Leash where I'm just gonna like hard riff. You know?
No, it was a competent movie.
Yeah.
It didn't explain itself
at all.
Really well, in a way of like showing you specifically what's going on or telling you what's going on.
Yeah,
there wasn't. It was like what you said a lot was like, oh, metaphor, guys, metaphor. Yeah. It was all mostly like a visual thing, but then there were times where you just kind of went with these long scenes of nothing really expanding on that so much. And then there were a lot of payoff scenes which were fantastic. But were they fantastic because of all the stuff that was kind of building up
Well, I think
like the nothing before.
Yeah, I mean, it's about pacing. Like, and I certainly think that the third act had some pacing issues, but I mean, I really felt most of the film didn't. I think that those pacing issues, which to be fair, you know, I mean, we may have been like riffing on the movie a little bit more than like really just allowing it to like wash over us. So it's kind of hard to like really attack a film's pacing if like we're also not giving it our full attention. But like at the same time, like I think that having those moments of not something happening make those moments where something happens just like a lot more impactful. You know, it's like you have that scene and like that sign that flips down with that guy at that desk, right? There's like these moments in the film that like jump out. You know,
to be fair, that was like one of the better scenes in the whole movie. Like that was like the centerpiece of the whole movie. And
that sequence in there, yeah, with like the police
station,
right.
Well, because you had elements of like the like the Gilliam sort of thing, like Brazil.
Oh yeah, no, and I totally get that. And it's just like
Time Bandits and you know Dave Made a Maze. I mean, we were kind of throwing out a bunch of different titles.
Yeah, and I mean, like the thing is, like, I feel like at certain points the movie was like making kind of obvious like college film school student.
Yep.
Like,
no, and
points.
I felt that too. Yep.
Like the whole thing where he had the suit with the money on it. I was like, this is like interesting performance art. Did this really need to make the final cut of this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the scene with like the money grubbing priest played by Bob Zamuda, I think made the exact same point, but better, you know?
Well, I mean, that was the same scene, though, right?
Yeah, it was this, but did we really need the thing of them ripping money off of him for like 5 minutes? You know, that's what I'm saying. It's like you're belaboring the point.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been
that's just
trimmed
judicious
down.
editing. But again, it's a personal movie, so clearly this is something he felt like super strongly about. So like that's the weird thing about like, you know, I'm more than willing to like go like really critique something that feels like this is a narrative feature, it's fiction, and it's doesn't like. Was the conductor played by the director? Because clearly he's like a stand-in for the director. You know, and there's like some kind of personal journey going on, and he's explaining like, you know, like, oh, at least this is what I was reading, where he's like the conductor is sort of like a stand-in for being a creative or a director, and this is his journey, and he had to deal with all these like kind of obstacles, you know, and maybe that Saint Bernard head is like his dream or whatever, like the thing he kept trying to keep alive, and it just kept getting beaten down. Like that's what my read on the movie was. And you know, there's these set pieces to kind of make it interesting and, you know, and symbolic. Just some of them I feel like work better than others, and even some that are like don't work or like I think need to be there just to keep the movie flowing. Like the whole thing with like the roadkill and the amputee, like that was like funny and kept us engaged, but like I don't really think it added anything to the movie.
There were sequences, and I keep going, and I in my brain I kept going back to it, and then especially when it got toward the end, and I said it out loud, I really thought that it was going to be like some reimagining or like within the brain of Mr. Holland's opus.
Yeah,
and
I did
at some
hear you
point
say
at the very end, you know, he would finally get like his redemption of like the thing that he was working toward that would elevate his opus basically. Yeah. And I didn't really see that. I don't really know what the point of everything was. I don't even know if I want to watch it again to kind of like deconstruct it or figure it out.
Well,
you know, I don't know.
I know. Before we go too much further, like I want to know what Sean's take was, since he suggested the movie. Like, and I don't want to like shut him out because he's not talking.
First of all, I don't.
Yeah, explain yourself, Sean.
I didn't really suggest this movie so much as I saw the trailer and I'm like, this looks really visually interesting, and has anybody else seen it? But I'll take full credit for, you know, actually bringing the movie to the group.
You got to get up on that mic
because I genuinely enjoy this movie quite a bit. I don't know what it's trying to say narratively at all. But I did enjoy the ride very much. I was pretty much glued to the screen the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, my eyes were enjoying where it went, but yeah, I would love to see it again.
I think that because they're. I mean, I in my read, because obviously I think there's different things you can read from it, but I really got the impression that old guy was a sexual predator,
right,
and that he had sexually abused that child, and that he was somebody who was a music teacher of his. And if the film's saying some things, it's about the fact that maybe this guy who was a mentor to him had abused him and kind of gave him this love of music, but that this love of music was also a constant reminder of the abuse that he suffered from this guy.
And he's never able to successfully push that through as a career.
Yeah. And I mean, to me that just read very strongly. I mean, at the end, I mean, obviously the giant phallus that the old guy has, but I mean, the fact that he's like turning into music, that when he attacks him, like music falls out of him, and that when he turns into a big monster, it's this monster that's like made out of music and musical instruments. And it's about this thing that he loves that's kind of attacking him. And I mean, if you're going to give the movie credit, I think you can even say things like the bust of Ludwig van Beethoven that you see in the film is reminiscent of the one in Clockwork Orange, in which music is used to attack somebody. To the thing that they love is used as a punishment on them. So I kind of got that impression from that. I also felt that like the Miss Roadkill scene, like I definitely don't feel that scene was superfluous with the guy with no legs. Like to me, it kind of spoke about kind of like violence and victim blaming, and the way that specifically with women, how men just, there's some men that just have this real vitriolic hatred of women and basically blame them for the way that they make them feel. And so it's like this guy does this thing to this woman, and yet he blames her for it. And not only that, but like he gets really
beats her
down. Rubs salt into her wounds and things.
I really want you to see The Perfection now, because I really want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm definitely interested in watching it. I might even watch it tonight. But yeah, so I mean, I was getting those things, and again, who knows, right? I mean, it could be that those things are, so out there and I mean, so bizarre that you're kind of forced to just bring what you want to. But I think some of those things are very clearly on there. Yes, this is a parable for madness, but I think it's also like for,
and drug use.
Yeah, drug.
I mean,
absolutely.
That was like one of the things too. I mean, I felt like that was like they hit you over the head with that so hard. Like I said, if you're gonna be really creative in metaphors, like I feel like some of them, you shouldn't go for the obvious ones. Like make it interesting. I don't know.
No, I totally do get you on that. I mean, some of it, especially, I see all the different pipes and everything. I'm like, oh, God, that's a bit obvious, isn't it? I definitely get you on that. And I'm not going to ascribe like a genius tag to this filmmaker.
No,
I'm really not. But I am going to say like what you get with this film is just like pure raw vision and imagination. And I mean, sure, is parts of it derivative? I mean, absolutely. But I mean, this guy's been in the industry for a very, very long time. And I mean, I don't know, like when, you refer to this like Tetsuo, right? When did that come out?
In the early 80s.
So I mean, this is like, I mean, he was a contemporary of a lot of those people too, right? So I think just to say that like he's ripping them off, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if you see, I mean, I get from what you're saying that you haven't seen that movie. I think if you see it,
sure,
you'd be a little bit more on board with that. That's why I was like,
I have seen the other things though. I mean, I have seen Eraserhead.
I didn't say it was ripping off Eraserhead. Right. I was like, I can see that like Eraserhead must have like sparked something. Like, okay, this is kind of reminiscent of that. The Tetsuo, the Iron Man thing, is a little like. Yeah, this is a little bit more than homage.
The way Tetsuo plays out, and in particular the final act of Tetsuo, is very similar to the way the battle sequence at the end of this movie is.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, having not seen it, I can say it, but I think that necessarily it's like,
I mean,
if you
down kind of like the penis thing even, it's like, yeah, that was like, come on, man, I don't know.
Right.
This is the curse of like I mean we've all seen a lot of movies sometimes that like works for or against us and like how we approach things, but
we also will say, oh well, this Jordan Peele thing reminds me of Roman Polanski, and say that's a good thing, and then we'll say, oh, this reminds me of this other movie, and say, oh, that's a bad thing, right? I mean, it's like what we want to describe to it.
It's different things though. It's like you can look at something and be like, okay, this is the same color scheme as like The Shining. You want to remind us of The Shining, and then the deliberate pacing, and then there's like the way this scene is shot is exactly the same as in another movie. And then it's like you could be like, and that's the thing. I mean, that's a whole different can of worms because Tarantino does that sometimes, and I'm not such a big fan of it. Like, even if you recontextualize it, like when they use the score for The Exorcist 2 and the Hateful Eight during the avalanche sequence, I'm like, you want to use an Ennio Morricone song? I get it. This kind of bugs me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's especially interesting with Ennio Morricone because he himself like reused songs of his own from other movies in other movies.
No, and I'm sure that's what Tarantino would say. But this is like, okay, I'm gonna, create this monster, and I'm gonna stage the way its machinery, transformation, even down to the lighting use, is done exactly the same way.
I'm not going to fault it for that.
Yeah.
Even
I mean,
though
and
it
I don't
did-
want to get in an argument about that because Josh's opinion is just as valid. Because
I didn't
no,
argue.
no, I don't mean that. I mean, I don't want to argue with Josh about it. This is just my take.
Sorry,
I'm
Josh,
saying
be
your
quiet.
take is. I'm saying your take is just as
Right,
valid
right.
as mine. You know,
I guess
we
again,
just disagree.
I mean, Sean, you're agreeing with
I
it. Like
wanna
I
see a
haven't
fight.
I haven't seen the film,
Fight.
so it's impossible for me to debate on something that I haven't seen.
Sure.
right? Like I don't know, but I have also seen many times that people say, "Oh, it's just like this," and then I see that thing, I'm like,
right.
No, it's not.
To me, it didn't matter.
Right.
I saw elements of Tetsuo, and I did, recognize that, but it wasn't something that took me out of the element out of the
I
scene.
mean, honestly,
We
if
also
somebody
saw-
liked Tetsuo, they
Right.
might like be into
just
that.
give me a second.
Okay, sorry.
The thing is you saw the thing where this, but the way that it was different though from Tetsuo, because Tetsuo,
It's not like stop motion either.
give me a second just to explain myself.
I'll
Victor,
stop.
please shut the fuck up for 1 second. But you had your moment to talk, and I'm going to defend the fact that Joshua has not seen it. We have seen it. You've seen Tetsuo as well, 1 and 2. It had elements of it because it was an expansion of the individual with all these different elements that had to do with an envelopment of that specific technology for Tetsuo, but for this it had to do with all those instruments. But the way that it was different was that it wasn't the individual. It was from the perspective of Bernard with this uncle, was from his mind. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't him.
Oh, that's a good point.
It was the uncle,
Right.
who which was kind of breaking down like his mind, like he was seeing it from what he realized who this individual was.
Yeah.
Not as like a mentor who someone was like giving him this gift of music and the passion for it and love for it. He found out that he was actually a monster that wasn't a positive thing, but was like this negative thing of
Right.
like kind of ruining
Yeah.
what was something that was innate in him.
And I think also like the metaphorical, like the growing of him, like is something, because this guy's like a feeble, old, skinny man, right? But yet in this guy's perception, he is this monstrous creature that is undefeatable, right? And it's like almost that is like a representation of the way that victims, are coward in front of their
Right.
victimizers, right? And I definitely felt that regardless of whether it's I just think that the film should be taken on its own merits, but like regardless of whether it's influenced by something else or reminiscent of something else, like what it's used as in the film, I think is really transformative. I definitely felt that was really interesting. Were there any other kind of sequences that stuck out to you guys at all?
Yeah, I think the police station sequence plays into that quite as well, because I mean, when you look at it as Bernard's perspective of a victim,
Right.
And he goes to the police department, and it takes him forever to get there. It takes him forever to respond. He does not get any assistance whatsoever
Right,
from them
right.
when he's inside the station.
Yeah.
I mean, that's victim 101, situation where the police aren't going to help me.
Totally.
I can't
Yeah.
go to them.
Well, what was I maybe I kind of missed. Maybe I felt like kind of a disconnect with the cigar chewing
Cop.
whatever cop.
It could be like they
whatever.
just a distrust of authority figures. I mean, that seems to run into this that, like, you know, he doesn't trust this old man, and then he goes to the police for help, and then they just kind of, you know, are also like sort of these negating what he's there for.
Yeah,
Well, I saw that with like the staff, but I guess I'll just call him the chief, you know, in the cigar, drinking all the wine or whatever.
Right.
But
Corrupt. He was corrupt.
yeah, I don't know, because maybe in some aspects of this film, there seems to be what they call like the hero shots. So you have hero effects. And that was definitely one of them, where it was very articulated. This head, you know, obviously wasn't some actor's head that they just kind of put prosthetics on,
Right.
but it was a full articulated mouth and everything.
Right.
And they wanted to spend a lot of time on that. Same thing with Miss Roadkill. They spent a lot of time because, you know, those legs, everything, all the prosthetics and everything that went into that just looked fantastic. So they took a lot of time with that. Do you think that the scene with the chief of police should have been that long? Because I don't think I got so much out of it until he went into the other rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't
and started
really
seeing like the bureaucracy of that.
Yeah, I did. I honestly don't really, you know, remember most of what he said or anything
That's
like that.
what I'm saying.
But I felt, you know, that this film was going for this kind of like bludgeoning you with imagery and trying to keep you off kilter. And I felt that was like really interestingly used in like really like the guerrilla filmmaking ways, like we constantly talked about, because there's this one scene that takes place like on a ramp, like on a freeway turnpike, and he gets out of the car and he like goes up to the side of the road, and that's where he finds this head of this Saint Bernard, this dog head, and you can see like this line of people stopped behind him, like he literally got out of his car, and you just look at the situation and like there is no way that they planned this. Not on a film of this kind of budget. Like the dude just got out of his car.
Can't shut down an LA freeway.
You just can't do it. Like, and I got the impression this was more like north of LA. You know, it was like one of those like smaller places that's not quite in LA, but still, like you just can't do that. And there's like people like lined up behind him, and you as an audience member feel like a little uncomfortable by that. You know, because you're like, wait a minute, how could they be doing this? You're almost watching something you shouldn't be watching in a film of this type. You know, like somebody brought up La La Land. You brought up La La Land, right?
Oh yeah, at the beginning when they're on the it almost looks exactly the same.
It probably is like I think it's the carpool on ramp by USC.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, but you know, you can see in a movie like La La Land, like, okay, they probably did shut down the LA freeway for a little bit, right?
They did.
You know, obviously, you know, but in this movie, they didn't do that. So you're automatically, you're left like, what's going on? Even parts like, you know, you're bringing up like he looked younger, you know, like in one part. And I think, sure, okay, that's because the film was probably made over a long amount of time.
That's when they were in Paris. That
right,
was like
exactly.
Country.
Yeah, but I also feel that is used to effect to keep you off balance, right? You know, to be like, hold on, that guy looks different right now, you know, sure, maybe that's a charitable read, you know, but like obviously they're gonna
it works that way at the very least.
Sure.
Like that's a generous thing I'll get. I mean, I think it's one of those things where, you know, money and trying to work in your passion project in between jobs,
right? Yeah, but they also have the guy like, you know, go in one door in LA and come out another door and he's in Paris. Like, I mean, they're obviously trying to throw you for a loop as an audience and, you know, make you not be able to find your footing. And I definitely think that is, you know, consistently used. And again, it's hard to say because it is a different experience. If you're sitting in the dark and there's nobody talking, you're watching that film, you're going to have a completely different experience than while we're sitting there, you know, making jokes and saying, well, what is this, right? So it's hard to really judge the pacing of the movie, in my opinion, on that, just with that type of viewing. And I do want to watch this movie again. I am going to pick up this movie because I just think that for the pure imagination, like I sat there multiple times trying to think about, like, how would you conceive of a movie like this? You know, like, what would you write down? Like, what would you start to write down? Just even if you look at all the things happening in that police station, and it's like you've got the one guy who's just like doing like scribbles on a piece of paper, and you've got like the kid who's like stamping things, and you've got like all this just, and there's so much visual information.
Guilty.
Totally right.
Guilty.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, sure, some of it is really good set design. And I mean, I'm not going to say, he sat down with a script and said, there is a door that has, 12 doorknobs on it, right? He's probably may not have done that. That may have been something you riffed on. But at the same time, like, I'm sure that a lot of this was on paper. This was, thought of ahead of time. And I don't know, to him, it probably does mean something.
Yeah, I think other than the police station seemed like it was in a warehouse where the set production took time to just cobble something together. I think maybe the beach house, or the what are they, like the pier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
those
the interior
were
of that
like,
were like the only two places, but everything else seemed like it was on location, especially the house at the beginning.
I think part of it is probably like like this was clearly made over time, and in between jobs he was doing. It's very surrealistic. It's more like maybe he just thought of set pieces that, because you could take out a lot of these set pieces and they all kind of make a point independent of the whole, so it's like when he was done at some point, he's like, well, this makes sense here, and then you could see where he probably shot sequences to tie them together.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Totally. Have you guys seen Schizopolis?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So I kind of thought about that a lot too. It's like a film that you have just a lot of little like vignettes, almost like short films, right, that exist within it. And I definitely got that impression from this. Like I got these little vignette short films.
That's a good pull. Because Schizopolis at the end of the day is about communication or lack thereof.
Right.
And this is a guy that's kind of going through his life or his dreamscape or whatever and is not communicating well with anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody's hearing his issues. No one's really hearing his pain. And he's not really paying attention to anybody else either because he's so wrapped up in himself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel that the... I mean, if that read is correct, that that this is largely about somebody who is a sexual abuse survivor, that the whole situation with Miss Roadkill was really about how people who are survivors carry that forth into all of their life and to all of their relationships, and how it does affect all those things, and that she herself, if you see in her background, she was also somebody who was a victim, whether it be that she was left standing on her own while her mother was having sex in a car, right? And but she also was a victim, and she also at that time she sees that pile of flesh, and we don't know whether that's actual flesh or metaphorical, that she's because she's you take flesh, right? That's like corrupted flesh. You see like pieces of an animal, you see a jawbone, you see all these things. So it's like in the same way that what's happening with her mother in that car is like a corruption of flesh. It's like as a child you're seeing flesh in a different way, just like that pile is, and then she goes off into her adult life and she carries pieces of dead flesh around her, right? And bones,
and even going to like the very beginning, it's like anytime you saw that gray silver line, the circle around that's the same woman like throughout the whole film. Right. I didn't really realize that until afterwards. I'm like, no, it's the same. I mean, in different. I mean, obviously not wearing the bones, with, the dreadlocks and everything, but it's the same person.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
That he would like run into in different situations or whatever, seeing the damned in a a small club or whatever.
Right, and I do feel that. I don't know. It's just, to me, it seems like you've got movies that are weird to be weird. Right, and I don't know if this is one of them. I don't think it's just I think there are maybe sequences.
No, and I think this film is something that it definitely, passion project, definitely something that was done over time, something that was edited together based on the material that was taped, with a lot of different ideas, but definitely something that was internal. What's the word that I'm looking for? It's the director, writer. Is it all?
Auteur?
It's all
Yeah.
synonymous. Yeah, right.
He's an
It's
auteur.
the same guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where this is something that is like completely and totally personal.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this is something that he has experienced himself,
Right.
and this is a way to maybe like cathartically just throw it out into the ether. But it seems like there's something like really personal going on here.
It definitely feels like that.
There doesn't need to be a narrative, even though I wanted something that I wanted to connect with something. Maybe I didn't have the same type of maybe experiences that he has had, or a way to express that, or feeling that like I had to express something like that. But I have to give it a lot of credit for that. Now, like I said, I don't know if I ever want to watch it again,
Right.
if I want to deconstruct it, but I think I kind of understand it on just that, just on the bubble surface
Right,
of it,
right.
that this is personal to this person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this
Yeah.
had to be done for a certain reason, but it's just not mine.
Well, here's an
You know.
interesting point, or that you can take on this too. I mean, couldn't you argue that most of like Neil Breen's movies are clearly personal to him on some level, and that he's talking about certain issues that he thinks need to be raised?
That's a completely different.
No.
conversation.
Just let me bring this up, because
Sure.
I think it's an interesting point of discussion at the very least. I mean, we're kind of throwing a lot onto this movie that we don't really know it. I mean, like, there's things that suggest it, but we don't really know. I will say, like, I feel like Neil Breen's movies seem very like commercially driven on some level, versus this, like, I don't really see like a commercial. I mean, even though it's being sold as a product by Severin, it feels like something like, oh, interesting. I see, like, this is viewpoint driven, but I don't really see how you could market this and sell it as a
that's what I said, is that this is more of a personal film.
Yeah, so I think
the
it's just weird, because then it's like, at what point do we kind of like say like, this is a heavy personal thing, we're just gonna try to examine it really, like, and see what's there, and at what point do we go like, this is again an outsider filmmaker, and they made something that just like is kind of like interesting, is kind of like a sideshow.
Well, and that's that where you raise that question answers that question at the same time, because that's your opinion, that's your experience, that's my opinion, that's my experience, that's Joshua's, that's Sean McLaughlin. I mean, that's just,
MacLachlan.
That's Kyle MacLachlan. Thank you very much.
Don't you see the red drapes behind me? I mean, it should be a visual.
You don't
cue.
think that was intentional or not? But yeah, I mean, that is the question that comes up, and I think this one was one of those where, like, we have finally I think we would agree that this is like his
Citizen Kane.
Well, I mean, the thing is that Citizen Kane was made about somebody else, right? That was made
Right.
about William Randolph Hearst, and I don't know if this is necessarily autobiographical.
Oh,
It
I
could
meant
just
more
be a
like their
story.
magnum opus.
Sure. I mean, honestly, it's been a long time, and he hasn't done anything else. Like,
you've only done a couple movies.
Right,
I don't know if you're ready
exactly.
to throw magnum opus out there. I mean,
but and it definitely seems like
Not
this was a
everything's
little
Catcher in the
passion project. This
Yeah.
was a way to, kind of express. And I absolutely get the impression that there's some of these things here that probably don't really have a lot of metaphorical meaning. They're just like things he wanted to do as a special effects artist.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
specifically like the hair people. Where you have this scene where it's like a bunch of hair from the bottom of a
Right.
barbershop like turned
And that
into
looked
like
cool.
these hair people. Yeah, and it looked really cool.
but that actually fit in with the plot as well.
And I will say,
Right.
Or what they were narratively discussing. I mean, because the whole thing with when he was a boy, with the music instructor. He keeps instructing him to turn his baton. I'm using words wrong here, I'm sure, and flip his hair, and he's constantly going hair.
You're right.
He does the final sequence as well during the battle. He's screaming hair at him.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
good point.
So the hair coming back to both protect him from Mrs. Roadkill. Miss Roadkill.
Right.
And also towards the end being used against him, I think it fits in with the through line. I'm not going to pretend to know 100% where it's going, but
no, that's absolutely bang on, and I definitely was not picking that up. So yeah, good pull on that one for sure. But yeah, I mean, and there's some really good just crazy, I mean, like a moment I want to call out was like the moment with the nipple on the orange, just like really sublime moments of like comedy that are
there's
embedded.
A lot of absurdist humor in there.
Like really just moments of like just like irony or just something really weird hitting you, and just like and I definitely think there's going to be people that might watch / listen to this, haven't seen the movie, but so it's like there's a part where there's like a fruit stand and a bunch of oranges, and one of them has like clearly what looks like a woman's nipple on it, and he just like kind of fondles it for a second,
just enjoys it,
right?
For,
Exactly.
Just a moment.
Which again, if you're going to take to the the read that we're doing on this is again kind of it goes into skewed sexuality, right? It's like that this is something that's following him, but it's also like a great moment of absurdist humor. Also, the moment where it's like there's the Miss Roadkill is like with her legs in the road, and this van comes and runs it over, and it's like spectacular a piece of like special effects, by the way. Like looks super good, like, and her legs get run over, and then the van stops. It's like a white van splattered with red blood, and then it opens, and it's a guy with no legs who gets out, and just like that just visual joke,
the entire time.
Right? Exactly. But beyond what follows after, like the idea that he runs over her legs and he also has no legs is just like a little visual joke that I just found hilarious. There was a lot of moments like that were just like little, almost like meta jokes that just really just hit for me in a really funny way.
I thought that was really a great sequence. With the legless guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really, because if you're looking at it from the perspective of Bernard, who's watching all of these events go down,
right?
He's watching a victim get berated and abused by somebody with the exact same issue,
right?
That she has or recently has.
Yeah,
I mean, there's something poignant. About
totally.
That whole sequence.
He's also standing there impotent to do anything about it too.
Right.
And he could, like,
but that's
this
him
guy,
the whole movie.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah,
this guy has no legs. Like, he could probably have kicked his ass if he wanted to. Right? He could have saved her, but he didn't save her.
Right.
Yeah.
So, going around, recommend, Joshua?
Yeah, I highly recommend it for sure. I think that if you're a fan of films like Eraserhead, like early Terry Gilliam, like David Cronenberg, even like there's a lot of Cronenberg in here, specifically like Naked Lunch. Like I definitely think that I mean, I think if you like really bonkers films, you're gonna like it. But again, what I like about it, it's not just weird to be weird. Like I think there's something pretty strong below the surface there. So yeah, high recommendation for me.
Victor?
I'll echo, if you like stuff like Eraserhead or like experimental films like the Quay brothers or that sort of thing, like this might be your jam. I think if you're just getting into film, this might be like a good like doorway for experimental film. I think for me it didn't like really speak to me, and so on that level I can't recommend it like it's something I would rewatch, but I feel like it's a good thing for other people to watch if you like that type of movie.
Visually, this movie I think is stunning, in set design alone, and then some of the special effects on it, the animations of the Fantasia-esque, hair,
right?
Those are great.
Hair creatures, and with Mr. Static, which we didn't talk about.
Yeah, Mr. Static. Speaking of Terry Gilliam, he looked like an animated Terry Gilliam thing come to life.
If Terry Gilliam did like Ren and Stimpy or something,
right.
It's the visuals alone sell me on this movie. I think there's something a little bit deeper in the narrative that I want to go back and look into. Is there a commentary on this, Dusk?
Let's take a look here.
Because I'd be fascinated to hear that if there is.
Yeah.
I know there's...
Well, there's the making of.
There's
right?
the making of and a trailer. That's it. 17-minute making of, though.
Yeah.
I might
that's
be
not
interested to watch the making of.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, no, I recommend it wholeheartedly. If you're into weird, absurd, ism type stuff or just abstract, it's worth checking out for sure.
And I'm kind of 50-50 on it. I think discussing it a little bit more, I would like to know more about it. But it had its moments. I think I'm kind of on the same page as Victor. I think if you're a college student that wants to see something that's like at college level, but an extra couple steps above that, to kind of see how something maybe obtusely approached with not much narrative, but more of like kind of this fantastical yet mundane capture of interesting camera work, interesting conceptual things happening, and then thrown together in kind of mix mosh of open thought process.
I think it's good to
I
watch.
think that's on the back of the box.
Is that the description? Yeah.
I feel like the way we saw it is probably the best way to see it with like a group of people. I think
maybe because one of the things that I noticed when we were watching it is that conversations started happening during kind of the more quiet parts of like, oh, did you get that thing from Arrow Video? Did you notice I got that, whatever?
I think that's
what
it is. Like
it kind of wandered from like your attention at some points, as opposed to like other things we've watched where we were just like on the edge of our seats, like what the fuck is going to happen next on even like Love on a Leash or the Neil Breen stuff. It's like you had no idea what was going to happen.
I am
next.
remembering the Love on a Leash experience very differently, but
I have to agree with
I
that.
remember.
Like we said, we're not bringing it like to that level.
We were singing songs during Love on a Leash because there was no score.
That's right.
In the film.
But we were still engaged enough to like not start wandering as much.
Yeah, talking about other things in our lives or whatever was going on.
No, I only literally pulled the movie up on my phone to see how long it was before it was over.
Right.
That's how disengaged I was.
I tried to do that with this movie too.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's not a complete like shit on this movie. It's a good movie.
No, I loved it.
We all enjoyed it, in our own ways, and I think we would all like suggest it in different levels of suggestion.
I'm glad we disagree about it. I mean, it's like it was one thing I was, was as the 80s all over that you recommended to me. I was listening and they just talked about it. It's like if we agree on it, it's shitty podcast.
Right. Right. Honestly, that's one of my biggest peeves is like when you like get to reviews and it's like 5 people and like one person's like opportunity like, oh yeah, I agree with him. Also.
Or like the way somebody says a long thing. Like I pretty much agree with everything he just said. Like, yep, that's it. That's the classic thing. So absolutely. I think there's a lot of no pun intended, meat to chew on in this film,
Yeah, no, I agree.
Definitely. And I think that is some of it a bit obvious? Absolutely. Certainly. I don't think you take a movie like what this really reminded me of, actually more than like Eraserhead, was Twin Peaks The Return. Specifically Twin Peaks The Return. Like a lot of like just the feeling of it reminded me quite a lot of that. And a lot of Twin Peaks The Return is inscrutable. Like you're like, I don't know what the hell that David Bowie giant tea kettle with black smoke coming out is supposed to mean.
Yeah.
Like I really have no idea. And like some people are like, that's a good thing because like, a movie like this, which wears its metaphors on its sleeve, is like, well, that's a little bit obvious. Like, be a little bit more weird, man. But at the same time, like I kind of like things that are, like of course I want things that are inscrutable to give you something to dig into. But when it's like, I think where it's like maybe that doesn't mean anything and it's just a thing to be like in 2001, right? An ode to the unknown, right? This is just something you're not supposed to know the answer to.
Well, no, and I think this is a little bit different after just like talking about it. I think this is something that is very personal,
right?
And like you said, it has to do with a
abuse. Yeah, totally.
So that's a little bit more obvious in that way, as opposed to Twin Peaks, where he does take the license to do something that's weird for the sake of being weird.
Totally.
It's kind of digesting this a little bit more over the last few hours. It does seem like there is that overtone of like, this is what this is about. And it might take those avenues of, this is very obtuse, this is very strange, this is just very like drawn out, this is inside my head, this is not inside my head, this is, this is affecting me in this sort of way, and this is how I'm dealing with it, and this is how it's going, this is the denouement to it.
Well,
there's more going on, than it just being, a tea kettle.
But I do think even beyond all of that stuff, just as if you're going to take all of that stuff and throw it out the window, I think as a showcase for special effects and set design,
absolutely,
any fan of film should watch this. And that's my viewpoint. It's even if you don't care about the artsy fartsy, that stuff, just honestly watch the movie as a special effects movie. It's one of the most talented guys in the game making his movie that he wants to make. Right?
Yeah.
Special effects, animation, on point.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
So what do we have up next?
What is next?
Remember?
Not offhand.
Can't remember the name of it.
Hold on.
I purposely didn't even watch a trailer or anything because I like to go in as clean as I can.
Yeah.
So, but I know it's got Ted Raimi in it, right?
Lunatics: A Love Story.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's right.
Got it.
So, Sean,
yes,
what do you know about Lunatics: A Love Story? Just kind of give not necessarily a synopsis of it, but
next time on.
Just to kind of get people excited.
I remember
about
hunting it down back in the VHS days. It's a very rare film to find now, but it used to be something that you could readily available.
Now,
Jesus Christ,
shame on you, Sean.
5 years later.
It stars Ted Raimi and Deborah Foreman.
Yes.
And Ted Raimi is the titular lunatic that falls in love.
Well, and it's a Renaissance Pictures, so it is a Sam Raimi production. Around the same time of like the Hercules.
This is a 90s movie.
Yeah, it's 90s. It's late 90s.
Joxer?
I don't know if it ever got a theatrical release.
Post-Joxer.
I don't know. It was one of those things that just kind of fell into my echelon of like, this exists, and I never knew it existed.
Every
until
time
like a
I've
month
tried
ago.
to track it down over the years, every search kept wanting to confuse it with Pyromaniac: A Love Story.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Did
not.
you mean?
It's a different movie. Yeah, exactly. Are you sure you don't want this readily available?
Right.
But again, this one seems like it's like an imaginative, creative, sort of bizarre, unconventional love story.
I recall it being
with
very
people
visual.
that we really like.
Yeah,
that
totally.
Are starring in it. So.
I'm all about that.
I got the physical copy. It came from Australia.
Wowzers.
From I think it's Umbrella Distribution. So it is available. It's out there.
DVD or Blu-ray?
DVD.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's a Blu-ray copy, but it could be something you could find on YouTube, but it definitely is out there if you were to search for it. So if you want to prepare ahead of time, obviously Saint Bernard is also available right now. I got that.
It just came out. I think this week was the official release date.
Because I pre-ordered, so I got it a little bit earlier than normal, but yeah. So that's through Severin.
Good
Lunatics,
guys.
Love Story is through Umbrella Pictures. So yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Do the roundtable. I'm Adam Murkowski.
Joshua T. Ruth.
Victor Moreno.
Sean McLaughlin.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Smash that like button.
Ring that bell.
Subscribe now.